invite them up. Yay, Cynthia!
Hey Liz,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good.
I feel so short in here. I don't know why.
It's like this.
Yeah.
Just let me make sure that Jose is ready to join us.
Cool.
Let me invite him one more time. How are you today, Cynthia?
I'm good. It's Monday. I'm good. I had a lot of coffee. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little tired, but you know, it is Monday
Yeah,
and all of the things
I hear you.
happening in the world.
Yeah.
Don't know what the problem is. Why?
Well, there he is.
There he goes.
Hey y'all.
Yay!
Hey Jose.
Hey y'all. Sorry, I don't have an Instagram. So like I'm like trying to navigate like what the hell am I doing, yo? Like,
Yeah, I hear you.
I hear you. Well, thank you both for joining me today, and thanks to those who joined us right now. My name is Liz Huck. I'm the executive director for Oakland Rising, and I'm really excited to have folks from Free Santa Rita Jail and Decarcerate Alameda County, as well as from Ella Baker Center. So I'm gonna let you all introduce yourselves so that uh, we can do that, and then after you introduce yourselves, I'm gonna ask you both two questions that we always ask everybody that joins. So you could think about it. One is, what are you having for lunch? And then the second is, how do you nourish yourself? So think about that, and then we could introduce ourselves. So let me give you the background though. So Monday Meals comes out from this idea that a few years ago, I used to run this little side hustle where I would make meals all day Sunday, and then I would, have them ready for folks to for lunch on Monday. So it was called Monday Meals. And a byproduct of it was that when I dropped it off, or I would like be at a spot where people could come pick it up, then I actually got to check in with people. And then also thinking about how we, in the movement, like when I was growing up, we little tiny college student organizer, is that I would like sit with my elders or my mentors, through the College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State. And like, you would sit and talk over food, right? You talk revolution over food, right? So this is really just an opportunity for folks to come together on Monday and just hear about like what's happening, not only in the town, but in Alameda County in general. And then to think about, to check in with you all, like how are y'all doing? So this is a super informal conversation. So folks who are joined too, please feel free to drop in the chat, like, what are you having for lunch? And what are the ways that you nourish yourself? So not just trying to think about self-care as like this one little thing that you do, right? To take care of yourself, like to stop what you're doing to take care of yourself, but what are the things that you're doing to nourish yourself lately? So I'll pass it to Cynthia first.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Hi everyone. I'm Cynthia. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an organizer with Restore Oakland and formerly DAC. Let's see. For lunch, I haven't thought that far ahead, honestly. It's 12, right?
Yes.
I don't know. Honestly, probably maybe some fruit. I think I have a salad in the fridge. Probably that. But I'm having tacos for dinner, so that's all I've thought about all day is like I can't wait for tacos.
Nice. What kind of
And
tacos?
pastor, yeah, it's my brother-in-law's birthday, so that's what he requested. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm with it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. See how I nourish myself. That's a great question. I think that for me, it's always my family, surrounding myself with my family, spending time with my nieces, nephews, uh, just like being able to be a child with them. So bringing out my own inner child and nourishing in that way, like just being able to like get away from all the stuff happening in the world and just being able to like be present with that for me is my go-to.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Spend time with your family. I love that. How about you, Jose? Go ahead and introduce.
Hey, yo, can you hear me?
Mhm.
All right, what's up, y'all? Jose. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the organizing director here at the Alameda Center. And just put it out there, I'm a Niners fan, yo. Like, I'm mad, I'm hurting right now, but I'm always rep my team. You know what I mean? Like, win or lose. So I just want to put that out there. And yeah, how I nourish myself. I think there's a lot of ways to do that. But for me, what's been very helpful more recently is just getting outside, going outdoors, and going for like a long walk or like a jog, going somewhere scenic, and just ground myself, just like enjoy nature, enjoy being outdoors, and I don't know, I feel good whenever I do that. So it feels very nourishing for me. So I'll
Oh,
leave it
I
there.
love that. I love that. I love that. Yes, I actually, the way I nourished myself this week is I decided to go to the ocean and spend
Ooh.
time at the ocean and offered my prayers and offered my own offerings to the ocean and just to be there. Um,
Yeah,
and
I
then,
love that.
yeah, right? It's so
I went,
great.
yeah, I went to, my grandpa's visiting from Mexico. I took him up to Lake Comanche yesterday because he used to take my mom and like her siblings when they were kids. So we went for a drive. I took him there and it was so sweet. He was sharing all these stories from years ago. So it was really
Aw,
sweet.
I love that. I love that. What are you having for lunch, Jose?
Oh, I'm not sure yet, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm in the fruit belt today. I'm in the office. You know what I mean? So you already know I'm gonna eat good. You already know, man. Fruit
Yeah.
belt.
I
So
know what's up. I know what's up. Maybe those barbacoa tacos right behind Restore Oakland.
yeah, yeah, or a mangolada. That
Yeah,
Can't
sounds
go
good right now.
wrong.
Yeah.
for real, for real.
Just do
Now I
a taste of Fruitvale and just get one thing from everywhere.
Yep, yep.
just have like a buffet. We'll call it buffet Fruitvale.
The Fruitvale charcuterie.
I like that. I like that. Um, so we called you all here today to talk because this year for 2022, there's a few seats that are up for election, and we're not going to specifically go into like who you should vote for, how to vote, or anything like that because we'll leave that to Oakland Rising Action, our sister organization. Um, excuse me, but we've been doing a lot of work, as part of our larger coalition of work, and we all sit together on the Justice Reinvestment Coalition, and we are really invested in looking at the ways that our district attorney and our sheriff's office really impact our lives, right? Um, and thinking that as we talk to people, that a lot of people don't know that you vote for your sheriff and you vote for your district attorney. For so long in Alameda County, both of those seats have just essentially been like passed off to the next person, to the next person. And the whole juggernaut of the system is just embedded, right, in ways that people are not knowledgeable about or don't even know it's there, right? So if you didn't like go all the way down your ballot, you might not know that. And because it's essentially those seats are like historically have just been passed off to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, that's sort of like anointed by the previous D or previous sheriff, that we don't see a lot of campaigning happening, right? Because people aren't running against the incumbent. So a lot of people just don't know that it's happening. So, but they play such a huge role in Alameda County and in Oakland. So, so I thought that I would bring you both on to sort of just talk about who our sheriff is, who our district attorney is, and what are like some of the issues that are happening right now that folks need to know about so that they could tap in and support, and some other things. And I want to leave some room at the end just so that folks are aware about what's happening with Oakland Unified School District and some school closures, so how folks can tap into that. But you know, with Cynthia and Jose today, we're really going to just talk about, like, you know, who's our sheriff, and whenever I think of this sheriff, whenever I think of Greg Ahern, I like my mouth just twists. It just get like, ugh, right? And so, yeah. So either one of you, please take it on and just like let folks know what folks need to know right now and how what they need to be aware of that's going on with the sheriff. And the other thing that I don't think people know is that the sheriff runs Santa Rita Jail, and the awful conditions that folks who are incarcerated at Santa Rita have to deal with as a result. So let me pass it to Jose. Jose, tell us a little bit about what's happening with the sheriff and what's happening at Santa Rita, so folks can know.
Thank you, Liz. Can you hear me? You're getting frozen on my screen. Okay, great. I think how you kind of put it out there is accurate, and something that I just want to note before I even get into the sheriff is county government, period. County government, most people, if you ask them about their city, they'll be able to tell you who their mayor is. They'll be able to tell you maybe who their council person is. But when it comes to the county, it's such a like mysterious government, you know, like in terms of how it works, how it functions, how money gets pushed, who the players are.
That's right.
And that's by design, you know, the way that it is that way. And so when you talk about decarceration, you know, when you talk about tearing down harmful institutions of oppression, you know, like such as the sheriff's department, the district attorney's office, the courts, you know, all of these things, you know, you can't talk about it without, you know, addressing the county government. And so it is by design that the elections in county are during off seasons, or what we call off season. So off election year, sorry, I should say that. And so, you know, whenever there's a presidential election, a lot of people turn out, right? Like it's high profile. It's, you know, this is election season, who's who, you know, and people vote, people turn out. But we have an election coming up in June, which is a primary for key important seats, such as the sheriff, the district attorney, supervisors. And shoot, man, you can ask people and they'll be like, what? There's an election happening in June? Like, you know, like who, you know, so, you know, that's part of the issue, part of the problem that we see. And, you know, these state actors, these state actors such as the sheriff and the DA benefit from that, you know, because they're counting that less people are going to be aware and know and turn out. And it's easier to check the box, you know, just to check a box because you don't know who's who, you know.
That's right.
And so let's jump into the sheriff. All right, let's talk about, you know, I'm not going to give dude credit and like say his name here because, you know what I mean? I don't.
What is he, Voldemort?
Oh, man. Like, you know what I mean? Let me just, me voy a persinar porque no. But, you know, I'll just say his name, whatever. You know, Mr. Ahern doesn't have a good record at all, and I'm being very cordial in saying that, you know, in Alameda County.
That's very generous of you.
Yeah.
But it honestly, you know, in all honesty, it's not about the person that's holding the office. It's about the office itself. and how harmful it is. And so I'll tell you the powers that the sheriff has in Alameda County. The sheriff runs the jail. The sheriff provides quote unquote policing services in Dublin and Castro Valley, so unincorporated areas, Dublin being the exception. The sheriff has amassed so much money since he's been there. 200 million plus since he's been there has gone to his department. The Santa Rita jail is a torture chamber. It is horrid conditions. Incarcerated folks literally are, begging, the county to reduce commissary prices, which they're jacking them up. So, and recently they've gone on hunger strike. And so you have top ramen that you could get for 25 cents, out here. Inside, they're charging you triple that, $1.75, $2. And the sheriff keeps 40% of that profit, the sheriff's office.
Wait. The sheriff's department is making money off the commissary.
Yeah.
40%.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lawsuit on this too. Like there's
Right.
a lawsuit just around like food in Santa Rita as well. Like, and how terrible the food is, not just in the commissary, but also like the food
What's
that's being
being
served to
served.
folks. Yeah.
Yeah, what's just being served. And that's kind of like one of those very, like, it feels like a trope, right? That in jails and prisons that the food is just not going to be good. But there is a baseline standard that we need to be caring for humans, right? And so oftentimes the commissary is a way that folks who are incarcerated are able to sort of have something aside as an option, right? As food option aside from what's being served to them.
Right.
So that's crazy. 40% that the sheriff is earning that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, that's the other more atrocious piece is, just the culture of cruelty, which then leads to our brothers and sisters who are currently incarcerated being brutalized, and in the worst instances, losing their lives, being killed at the hands of the sheriff's office. And so Santa Rita does have a very high number of in custody deaths, and that is the most egregious example of state violence that our folks are experiencing. And so Santa Rita just it just needs to be shut down, period. It just is. And I don't know, Cynthia, if you want to talk more about the organizing work that we've been doing around the Babu settlement, because that's very relevant, to everything.
Yeah, thanks, Jose. Yeah, so a lot of folks don't know this, but there's been an ongoing lawsuit in the county. It's Babu versus Ahern. And what that lawsuit is centered around is how terrible, like we've said, the conditions are in Santa Rita. And folks inside are being terrorized. They're being brutalized. Again, the food situation is like a whole nother situation as well, that on top of that. But just the idea that like folks with mental health needs, jail is not a place for them.
That's right.
Santa Rita cannot provide the resources and like especially the mental health resources that folks need. And so the idea is that like turning to community-based resources for life-affirming resources. So, and they'd say, if you don't have mental health needs before going into jail, you will have them by the time you come out of there. And it's terrible. Folks aren't even allowed to leave their cells with the COVID outbreak and how terrible that is and how high the numbers are. Like folks are barely getting like an hour out of their cell at times. There was moments and times where folks were getting like an hour to 2 hours a week outside of their cell. Can you imagine like what that does to you mentally and how folks are feeling in there? So with
and also my understanding is that the way that the Santa Rita is dealing with mental health is just medicating people, and then they're only offered like 15 minutes a day to be seen by by a medical staff to just basically administer their pills, and then they're left to stay in solitude often, right? And as we all know, that the way to actually care for people who are dealing with mental health issues is to be in community with others, right? To be in contact and to have different forms of therapy and care that not only just look like therapy, but can be many other things, right? So, when you have programs and you have, people are able to engage in different things that, like you were saying, Cynthia, that are life affirming, that oftentimes you can move through that mental health crisis quickly. But there's I mean, I've referenced this before, and I've referenced it in other ways, like where even the federal government has come in and done a report and basically
Right.
charged Santa Rita with a violation of the American Disabilities Act because they are failing to provide adequate mental health services, and that is on top of already the county failing to provide mental health services, which is why we have an increased incarceration rate, right? Is that then that Santa Rita is providing the worst care, and so
Right.
that's also part of this settlement, right? Is like thinking through how awful of a situation it is, right?
Yeah, and also too to that is like the answer according to like the sheriff in the county is instead of actually providing the right resources, they're just hiring more and more jail staff under the sheriff's watch. So they had already 40 like unfilled vacancies, and then in the 2021-2022 budget, when they were coming to approval, asked for an additional 94. So, or was it 94
I
or
know,
104?
you
Yeah,
said this,
and
Cynthia,
it's
the
wild.
statistic at the town hall last week, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
And the
so
Alameda County supervisors gave them that money?
yes, literally, they keep giving them more money for filled vacancies, right? And they can't even fill the vacancies that they have. And
Okay,
the
so you
answer for
said,
that is they're saving that money in case people are going on vacation for vacation funds, for like people's vacation time and sick time and things like that. Like that's where that money's going. Rather than there are so many community resources already in Alameda County that are doing the work that like folks need, the like mental health work that folks need, the like reentry work, the like just like housing work, everything that like are super underfunded and don't have the resources that could like really make a change here. But like instead, we're just throwing more money into the sheriff's pocket. Like that's what's happening.
wow, that blows my mind, like just that part. And I know, Jose, that you have to hop off at 12:30, but so I wanted to hear a little bit more from you about that. Like, what are you seeing at the county level that's contributing to like this continual investment in the sheriff when they're failing so badly, right? What do we need to know about what's happening at the county level so that we can start focusing on what that means and how do we change that?
Yeah, I mean, I think um, where the county is at is we've seen this movie before, and it's a failed policy that relies on incarceration, to address public health issues. Like we've seen
Mm.
this movie over and over and over again, and the proof is in how exponentially and significantly the overall budget for public protection has increased, over the last decade or two. And so, even though there are now less people in Santa Rita, by not thank you to the county, but because of state reforms that have happened, um, more money has gone into the jail, more money has gone into policing, more money has gone into, um, buying military equipment for cops, buying helicopters. At the same time, more people are sleeping on the concrete floor outside. More people can't go to go get a therapist. More people, don't have resources. And we've seen this movie before play out over and over again. And Alameda County, the government, the leaders that be, whether it's the supervisors, the DA, the courts, they keep relying on this. And what needs to happen is a fundamental structural change, in the approach that Alameda County has, and acknowledgement and understanding that like these policies that they're putting forward, like they continue to put forward, have failed repeatedly. And the only way we're gonna impact, and the only way we're gonna all be safe, is when we invest in the things that actually keep us safe. And so rather than locking people up, because they had a mental health crisis, what would it look like to have mental health crisis response team, support the person, non-policing response, have housing for the person, have access, to a good paying job for somebody. And so, we're man, the county is underfunded significantly in those resources, but overfunded like ridiculous amounts of money when you talk about the jail, and so that's what needs to happen, and the DA is a key player in all of this, because the DA is a person that's, caging people, like that's the person who has the right, the authority, I shouldn't say right, but they have the authority, in terms of what they charge someone with, and how much time someone is going to face, and all of these things, and so the DA is a key player in all of this.
So who's our current DA, right? And what are some of the issues that we're faced with the current DA right now?
Yeah, so the current DA is District Attorney Nancy O'Malley. Nancy O'Malley has announced that she's not going to run next year. And so for the first time in 50 plus years, you might know the exact time, Liz, but it's going to be an open seat. And so, I think...
to be clear, Nancy O'Malley didn't hold that seat for 50 years.
No. It feels like it, but no.
But it's essentially what I said earlier, which is right, that the previous DA essentially just
hands it over.
Hands it over to her, and then
right.
it handed over to Nancy O'Malley, and there was an infrastructure there, right, and the funds that go into the campaign went directly to her, not her herself, but her campaign.
Right.
Be very clear.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the things that we've been faced with having, with the DA, and what are some problems? Like you said, they are definitely in charge, or maybe just letting folks know, what did the DA do, right? Because I don't think a lot of people know that either, because they also provide some services, correct? And then, but they don't take advantage of other programs, which, like diversion programs and things like that, that could be, invested back into the community. But could you say more about when you talk about the district attorney, it's what does the district attorney do, so that folks know?
So the district attorney is a very powerful office that, and just for context, a district attorney is a cop. I'm not confused about what a district attorney is or isn't. They're a cop, period. And they basically are in charge of prosecuting people, and so police, arrest someone and they charge somebody with something, and it's up to the district attorney to decide if they're going to press charges, what they're going to charge them with, the difference between a felony, a misdemeanor, a citation, or just, dropping the charges. The prosecutor has a lot in there, so they will accuse you of the crime, and then your defense attorney will try to defend you from whatever the prosecutor is accusing you of. And in the U.S., our system is one where in most cases are resolved, quote unquote, resolved with a plea deal. And so the prosecutor will say, hey, Jose, you're looking at 10 years right now because I'm giving you an enhancement because I think you're a gang member. And, I'm not going to drop that enhancement, but if you plead to X, Y, and Z, we'll cut you down to 3 years. And I may say like, well, I didn't do anything. Why, you know what I mean? Why am I going to plead to 3 years? And this happens all the time, So my attorney will say, look, we could take it to court, but if you lose, you're going to get 10 years. And the DA's got that hanging over you. So, you better take the 3 years. And that ends up happening a lot, And so the DA has a lot of power. And, unfortunately, I have a hard stop right now. Just getting text right now. But the DA is, yeah. I'll say the DA's office is not our friend. Historically, the DA's office has never been our friend. I'll just say
I heard that. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I know that you have to hop off, Jose, and so we'll definitely have this conversation again another time. And so Cynthia and I can definitely continue the conversation. But thanks, Jose.
Bye, Jose.
Appreciate all your work.
Much love, everyone.
So Cynthia, so just kind of going off of what Jose started talking about the DA, right? And I think that a lot of folks out there might think, it's the law. There's a law. So the DA is just upholding the law. But when I think about what Jose was just saying about, they could add on enhancements, they could do all of these different things, without getting too in the weeds about it, right? Like to get into all of the nitty gritty of it all. But just thinking about what kind of bias the DA can have, right? And then, and what that translates into like people's lives, right? And so, Jose was talking about that really specifically, but what does that look like? How does that play out?
Yeah, I know this all too well for personal reasons. And so let's just talk a little bit about too is one with the DA and the DA's relationship into Santa Rita, as well as understanding that right now, well, okay, maybe not say right now, over summer, I should say, the pretrial rate of folks inside Santa Rita was 94%. That means 94% of folks in Santa Rita jail were awaiting trial. So folks were charged with crimes, but not actually convicted of any crime. So meanwhile, we're still in the middle of a pandemic where COVID numbers are rising, especially in Santa Rita. If y'all have been following how high increase the COVID numbers are there. So folks who are sitting there just awaiting trial because they can't afford bail because bail is so high, or they've been denied bail. And a lot of these charges are low offense charges of drug charges, small theft charges, things like that folks can easily be awaiting trial from home.
And the DA is the one who sets the bail or recommends the bail.
Correct.
Right?
And there was a point in the pandemic where the DA was allowing folks to await trial from home because of the COVID numbers, but then that just stopped, and it was what was happening is the charges were changing weird. And the bail amounts were changing, so that they didn't qualify for waiting trial at home. So it was just really sketchy. And because people in the jail means more money in the sheriff's pocket too, right? So it's just collusion all around. And then on top of that, I think Jose said is the DA is a cop at the end of the day. And the DA, this is just so much bias because the DA is endorsed by the POA, by the Police Officers Association. So the union that all the police officers are a part of are literally funding the DA's campaign. They're putting thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into the DA's pocket. There was a situation years ago where a teenager, Elena Mondragon, was killed by Fremont police in Hayward. And in the middle of deciding whether charges would happen or not and what would happen with that case, the Police Officers Association donated I want to say somewhere between 70 and 90 grand to the DA's campaign, and no charges. So it's these things are exactly these things
Makes
are
you
happening.
Just go, there's no there you have no firm that's the thing about campaign donations, right? Is that you don't have this firm like they did it, but it definitely makes you go,
Exactly. It's shady. It's sketchy. And like, it just, to me, I'm like, it's legal.
It just
It's
makes
legal. Is it, I'm just saying, like,
right.
especially like, as an impacted family member myself, like I lost my cousin to police violence, and I'm just sitting here like, man, if we had more money into our communities, like, it, my cousin would be here today. Honestly, I am a firm believer that, like, in the midst of his mental health crisis, if he was met with literal humanity and like people who actually like understand what folks are going through and like trained professionals, that like my cousin would be here today. But instead, all this money is being funneled into these police departments, into the sheriff's departments, and like instead, like our families and our friends are dying in Alameda County. Like we see these things happening all over the news. We see the protests, we saw the uprisings, like all these things that are happening, but like it's happening here in our backyards to our families, to our community members. And like that's why like we're doing this work, is to put money into our communities, because like at the end of the day, the cops don't keep us safe, the sheriff doesn't keep us safe, like we keep us safe. Like our community keeps us safe. Like Ella Baker says it all the time, like we keep us safe.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit, because we're so much like, I woke up today feeling like the weight of the world, I mean, it's Monday, but, I was feeling like the weight of the world in all the ways that it happens. And I think that oftentimes we like talk about these like systems, like these things that happen to us that are like, that we live with, like the DA and the sheriff. But those things actually translate into like our individual lives and the impact that it has in our individual lives. And so then I want to start to like shift thinking about like, oh, rather than like, let's just center the conversation around the DA, right? And then, or the sheriff's department, and then saying, oh, I want to dismantle that and I want to do this, but thinking about like, well, what is it that we would need? What would have saved your cousin? And I really appreciate, Cynthia. Thank you for opening up and sharing that so publicly, but like, what would that response look like? What could it look like, right? Instead, like, what is it that it looks like? And so when I think about, like, there's so many places this imagination can go, right? Because I think about, like, when I think about, like, Korean tradition and Korean community, that there was a time when we lived in, like, villages and we lived in small rural places. And, someone did something stupid, right? Because we're human, right? And how community elders and villagers would come together and like, they would check people, They didn't necessarily always go to a cop, right? And so I wonder what it would look like in this day and age for us to like, when somebody's having a mental health crisis, and we're going to have so much more of that, given that the pandemic has created so much more anxiety and stress and has pushed people financially and physically to the brink, right? And that's not some euphemism, y'all. Like in Oakland, we went from having 6,000 people on the streets, living on our streets, to 8,000. Like, that's wild to me.
Well, and they
Right?
have like the numbers of like folks. Kaiser did a like report about like anxiety and depressive disorder symptoms, and that between 2019 to 2021, that they're like those numbers like nearly quadrupled. And of course, a disproportionate amount of that impacted Black and Latinx folks.
That's
So, and they were saying like Oakland Children's Hospital like also reported that like double the suicide attempts happened in 2020 that were seen compared to 2019. And again, Black youth were more likely to be affected than their white peers.
That's right. That's right. So thank you. Corazon de Oakland put mental health first response. Like that's anti-police terror project. That's an example of that. And thank you for lifting that up, because that is actually one response that is not even within the system, right? They
Right.
decided, screw the system. Like there are some things that are happening at the county level, but trying to create these community responders. I know on BART, Latifah Simons, who's on the BART board, really pushed to have community ambassadors on BART instead of cops after what happened to Oscar Grant, and like I just think about that there are so many opportunities, right? Like what do you think would have what you said, Cynthia, a little earlier that really struck me, and I think I'm going to carry that in my heart today, is how do we respond with our humanity?
Yeah,
Right?
and that's such a big thing, right? Because what happens a lot of the time, and this is in our communities, it's also like with folks incarcerated and stuff, is like people lose the idea that like folks are still humans. Like we're all humans. And and I think like a lot of like police are like desensitized to like that aspect of it. And this is just like this is my personal opinion, Um, but it's just like when folks are met with like care and compassion, that's where de-escalation comes from. When
That's right.
folks are met with guns and tasers and violence and anger, that's escalating the situation always. Always escalation.
Right.
So like how do we incorporate things into our communities that are gonna like be literal life changing, like that will save folks' lives? And that's again, mental health first is like a perfect example, because like they are open on the weekends, when the county is not open for response, and their
Right.
literal answering machine says we're not available, call the police. And it's like, what?
Again,
Why
one
is
of
that your
those.
answer? Why is that your answer?
Yeah.
So it's, trained folks, trained community members at that, people who live in your community, that know your community, that like know what's happening in the areas around you, that are meeting you with literal compassion.
Right.
And like also understanding that like crime rates go down when folks feel safe and folks are able to like live, when folks have a livable wage, when folks
Right.
have housing, when folks have food in their stomachs, good food, not food with like rat droppings in it inside Santa Rita jail. Like, you know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
folks have
That's
these
right.
resources, then like we're healthier. Like
That's
things
right.
are going better for us. Crime rates drop. Like people don't have to steal
That's
because
right.
we're able to provide. Like it's just like understanding that like how, again, meet folks with compassion and care, and like things would look different.
That's right.
And yeah.
So I'm gonna put that out to everybody. Like, who's following, you could drop it in the chat. You could just think about it, like hold it in your heart today, because I'm going to, like, what are the ways that we can respond with our humanity? And like, if that could be the basis of our conversation, right? Like what a different world we would be living in. Like our COVID response would have been different, right? If we had thought about if that was the center of where we were beginning.
Right.
But so this is all to say that folks can tap in, right?
Right.
So they could tap in because, and if they go to, is it on the Decarcerate Alameda County, or where is it that folks can go and check? Is it with Justice Reinvestment Coalition? Folks can go and check out the videos from the town halls, the past town halls. Is it there?
Yeah, there's a few different resources that folks can reach to. So right now the JRC, the Justice Reinvestment Coalition, is doing a political education campaign that like we're in the middle of, that you can tap in with them and get so last week we did a similar kind of than like what Liz and I are doing now. We did a just kind of like a share knowledge about the sheriff and the Babu settlement. You can also tap into like DAC's website. So this Instagram I'm on, Free SRJ, is from formerly known as Decarcerate Alameda County. We do have a website that is currently still active that has resources from past sessions that we've done, work sessions with community members as well, that you can tap into. But yeah, I mean, I think both of those are really great resources. We did a Budget 101 training last summer that's like super helpful that we just shared with the JRC as well. So happy to like share any resources with folks so y'all can really break down like the $500 million budget that the sheriff has currently, and like just different ways to like plug in on how to come up with like ideas and strategies to put that money like back into our communities instead.
That's right.
And then also just want to like make a plug to just like back to what you said earlier, Liz, about like when harm is happens in our communities, like what like I don't think we have like a definite answer of like what the right response is to that, but I think like it's just like understanding too that like a transformative justice process and like restorative justice process is always an option,
Right.
that folks are like using more and more. And like actually like at Restore Oakland, like we have a really great like healing justice team that holds community circles on Wednesdays for like formerly incarcerated folks, that like I've been to a few and they're literally like life changing and like so great. So if like anyone's like feeling like they need community, like that's also an option as well.
Right. And if you're a young person or know a young person, you can tap into communities for restorative youth justice, Courage. They also do those healing circles. And I know that Ella Baker Center also provides like
Yes.
a community safety and community care program, particularly for those who have suffered the violence of the police state, right? And so definitely, and family members of those folks. So tap into those. I really appreciate you, Cynthia, for joining us today. If you really like this conversation, follow Oakland Rising. Go to oaklandrising.org, and if you feel generous today to donate to the work that we do, we build electoral power for those that live in the flatlands of Oakland, and are expanding a lot of our work into Alameda County. And then also to let you know that in Oakland, the Oakland Unified School District is planning to close 12 schools, public schools. And don't get it twisted, this isn't just about charter schools. They are a part of a system, a neoliberal agenda to really take over much of the public land that Oakland Unified School District owns in Oakland, right? So that they take that land over and then have developers get their way. And then we will see more displacement and more gentrification. So tap into that, even if you don't have a young person that's going to school. There's a week of action that is happening. Of those 12 schools, 8 of those schools are predominantly Black schools. And so we need to really tap into that to save really the soul of Oakland. So tap into that, look at reparations for Black students, and really help them to build on the demands that they have for that. There's a whole week, so check it out. I believe today there's a board meeting tonight, so you could tap in and call in with to demand that they don't close the schools. There's a car caravan. There's other actions that are happening this week, so tap into that. You can follow Oakland Rising for that, and also, but go to reparations for Black students.
Yeah, and that's like, just so folks know, this has been happening, like it's a trend happening in Alameda County. It just happened in Hayward as well. And there was a Save Our Schools campaign, still in process. And organizers and activists were able to like save a few schools, but not all. But encouraging folks who are helping out in with Oakland's situation to like plug in with folks that have already been organizing around that, share resources, share community, and like more people power just does wonders, literally.
That's right. Because that's what's going to save us. That's part of our humanity, right? Is the people power. So thank you so much, Cynthia, for joining today. I really enjoyed the conversation. Liz. And check out all of the things that we talked about. And I appreciate you all. Be safe.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate you, Liz, for hosting this, and providing a safe space for folks to come and get info.
Yeah, of course. Talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
y'all. Bye.
Bye.